Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And thank you for your interest in the University of Toronto, Mississauga, or UTM for short, as we like to call it. My name is Meghan McCulloch, and I am a student recruitment officer here at UTM. And I'm so thrilled to be here today to share with you some of the unique features of the Mississauga campus and highlight information for you to consider as you make this important decision for your future. I am joined by a few of my colleagues this evening. We have Maddie and we have Connor, who I will invite to introduce themselves. Maddie, why don't we start with you?
Awesome. Thank you, Meghan. As she said, my name is Maddie, and I'm a third-year student here at UTM. I'm doing an anthropologist specialist under the science stream and a history of religions minor, and I'm lucky enough to be here today to do your virtual tour.
Great. Thanks so much, Maddie. And now, Connor, over to you.
My name is Connor Savory, and I work in student recruitment and admissions. I'm mostly going to be hanging out on the back end this evening, but you will see me again at the end during our question and answer period.
Great. Thanks so much. So we have a wonderful little event for you guys planned this evening or morning or night, or depending on where you are joining us from. We're going to start first with a brief little overview about the University of Toronto, Mississauga, and what it has to offer you when thinking about your next steps in your academic journey. And then I'm going to pass the floor over to Maddie, who will be giving you a virtual tour of our beautiful campus, teaching you a little bit more about our school and talking about her student experience and what it's like these days as a UTM student. If you guys do have any questions over the course of the presentation, please do not hesitate to share in the chat. We are also joined by one of my colleagues, Oriana, who will be on the back end, and she will be helping us with the live chat to answer any of your questions that you guys have. At the end of the presentation, as Connor mentioned, he and Maddie will join me back on screen, and we will go through a brief question and answer period before wrapping up the event. So with that, I will say goodbye to Maddie and Connor for now, and we will get started. So to begin our presentation, we would like to acknowledge the land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are so very grateful to have the opportunity to work, to live, and to learn on this land. Now, as you may know, the University of Toronto is one university with three distinct campuses, meaning that you have three separate learning environments to choose from. All three of our campuses has something unique to offer, but the important thing to remember is that at all three of our locations, you'll be getting the same world-class education and graduating with the exact same University of Toronto degree. So this means that when you graduate on your diploma, regardless of which campus you study at, it will say the University of Toronto. For today, however, we're going to be focusing on the Mississauga campus. So our Mississauga campus, for those who may not be familiar, is located in Mississauga, Ontario, which is about 30 minutes to the west of Toronto. Our community is home to around 15,000 undergraduate students studying across the arts, the sciences, and business. As an applicant to UTM, you're going to choose, or maybe you've already chosen if you've already submitted your application, between 12 different admission categories that we have at UTM. These can lead you into over 180 different programs, which span across 18 different academic departments. What this really means for you is that you have a wealth of options to choose between. So why might you consider UTM as your new home going forward in your education journey? Well, we really have a lot to offer our students, and for that reasons, students choose us for a variety of reasons. As you can see from this slide, these are just a few things you may want to consider as you begin to think about where you would like to continue on your journey. You're going to have the opportunity to participate in cutting-edge research with world-renowned faculty as early as your second year of studies. The city of Mississauga is a vibrant, multicultural city right on the border of Canada's cultural and economic heart. We call ourselves the natural choice, which is actually one of my favorite things about UTM. So even though we are in the middle of a bustling city, our campus is surrounded by 225 acres of beautiful, protected green space, surrounded by trees, woodlands, gardens, and is also home to many deer on campus, which you will most likely encounter during your time here at UTM. Also, the university has just been named the most sustainable university on the planet, which is something that we are also extremely proud of. As a member of our community, we're always looking to support your transition, and we have an abundance of supports available for you that are designed to meet you exactly where you are and to also help you reach and exceed all of your expectations. We are also the #1 university in North America for research-based startups, and we are one of the top 5 university-managed incubators in the world. We are home to a variety of unique and dynamic programming, including the premier forensics program in Canada. We have our brand new game studies minor, as well as our communication, culture, information, and technology program, which is unique to the Mississauga campus as well. The university attracts students from all around the globe, and our student body and large network of alumni connect us with 135 different countries around the world. Amongst public universities, we're actually ranked first in Canada and number 11th in the world for global alumni employability. This means our graduates are among the world's most sought after in the minds of employers. And this means that your degree can quite literally take you anywhere in the world. So these are just a few things. I can go on and on, but I know that you guys are primarily here to get a glimpse into student life. So with that, I'm going to call Maddie back on screen and pass it on to her for our virtual campus tour. Hello, Maddie.
Hi, Megan. Thank you so much. That was awesome. So yeah, there we go. So hello again. My name is Maddie, and I'm a third-year student here at UTM, and I will be doing your virtual tour for today. I'm also a student ambassador with the recruitment and admissions office on campus, which is why I know and get to do tours at events like these all the time. So if you ever actually are on campus or when you get here, feel free to stop by the office and say hi to me. So we're going to begin by going to our first building, the Kneff Center and Innovation Complex. So forgive me, there was a bit of a delay, so I'm going to start again on that one. Often referred to as KN, a lot of what we do here gets short formed into abbreviations that are easier to remember. The Kneff Center is home to the Institute of Management and Innovation, Management and Economics departments, and some graduate programs. It features instructional and study spaces and is centered around the rotunda, which you see in the top right picture on the screen. This space is often used to host guest lectures as well as other events. Key features of this building include the Office of the Registrar, the Student Recruitment and Admissions Office, the Finance Learning Center, and the Blackwood Gallery. So the Office of the Registrar functions very similarly to a high school guidance office, as it aids current students by answering general inquiries about academics and finances primarily. They offer academic advisors who deal with things like course enrollment and degree planning, and financial advisors who cover financial aid and student accounts. Student Recruitment and Admissions, which is where I'm working from, is the first point of contact for prospective students, families, and educators such as yourselves, as they handle everything to do with admissions, applications, as well as campus introduction events such as events and tours. One such one that I got to go to this year, as well as last year, was Fall Campus Day, which happens on campus. We also attend the Ontario University's Fair. On that note, keep an eye out for information regarding the March open house this year. An interesting fact, the girl in this photo, her name's Amy. She worked with me last year. Super awesome. KN 137 is a really great example of the kinds of classrooms you'll come into contact with as a first or second year student, especially because those tend to be more generalized and will thus have more students, thus larger lecture halls. I know that can often seem scary for people coming, especially from high school where you have smaller classes and there's more interaction with the teacher. You can have similar opportunities here, specifically through things like office hours with the professors, but we also have additional course-adjacent classes called tutorials and practicals. They function the same. They're 1-hour sessions attached to a larger lecture that happen once a week, and they're run by TAs. They usually have smaller class sizes. They can be anywhere between 20 and 40 students, depending on the lecture they're attached to. But they're a great opportunity to sort of get to know everybody else, work on things like hands-on learning, collaboration, as well as build your discussion and public speaking skills. The Finance Learning Center, which is located in the basement of KN, is designed to help students build business-related skills, including research, gaining certificates, and software experience. Lastly, the Blackwood Gallery, which presents temporary curated exhibits, featuring works from local, national, and international artists. We're now going to move on to our next building, the William G. Davis Building, also known as Davis. The largest academic space on campus, with various lecture halls, classrooms, technology and science labs, and greenhouse labs, the William G. Davis Building was built back in 1974 and currently houses multiple of our science programs, including anthropology, earth sciences, biology, chemistry, and physics. Key features of Davis include the Recreation, Athletics, and Wellness Center, the UTM Bookstore, the Student Services Hub, and the Science Labs. The UTM Bookstore is a one-stop shop for everything U of T related, which includes school supplies like stationery and electronics, as well as branded clothing such as sweaters and sweatpants. Commonly referred to as the ROC, the Recreation, Athletics, and Wellness Center, is a full athletic facility available to all students. It has an indoor track, an 8-lane swimming pool, gyms, and weight and exercise equipment. Students also have access to personal training sessions, drop-in programs, women-only gym hours, and exercise classes like Zumba. Up on the main floor of Davis is the food court. This is one of the larger food areas on campus with a variety of options that can accommodate many dietary restrictions such as halal, gluten-free, and vegan. And some of the choices include Tim Hortons, Thai Express, and Pizza. A fairly recent addition to the Davis Building, the Student Services Hub sits opposite the cafeteria and encompasses the Health and Counseling Center, the Career Center, the Center for Student Engagement, the International Education Center, and Accessibility Services. Now, the HCC offers medical and mental health services to students, including doctor's appointments, personal and group counseling sessions, as well as nutritional counseling. They're heavily involved on campus through promotion and education, and often do so through campaigns and different kinds of programming, so you're more than likely to see them while you're on campus. The Career Center offers one-to-one career counseling, employment strategy appointments, and workshops, including resume and cover letter building, as well as mock interviews. They provide on-campus meetings with employers and working professionals to discuss career options with students in various fields of study. Interestingly, the Career Center's support is available to students up to 2 years past graduation, so they're a really super helpful resource for navigating postgraduate life, whether you're pursuing an academic pathway or you're going into the workplace. Now, the CSC is designed more so for out-of-classroom activities, and they run various services, programs, and resources for students on and off campus, including volunteer opportunities and wellness sessions. They also offer first-year supports, which I recommend you looking into if you're interested in attending UTM, such as Eagle Connect and the Launch Program. These are designed to they're designed to prepare and transition students into university life, often by facilitating things like group activities and other interactions to get you involved on campus. Also under the CSE is the CCR, or the co-curricular record, which records all out-of-classroom activities and can be used for job applications and research opportunities. They are a really great place to get involved volunteer-wise, super easy to get involved with, and as somebody who did it last year, a very rewarding experience, even if you're not necessarily interested in the off-campus engagement. It's a really good space to build things like public speaking skills as well as leadership. Also known as the IEC, the International Education Center acts as a hub for international and domestic students looking to develop their global fluency. They also provide immigration support, learning abroad opportunities, and other programming. I actually worked with them partially last summer when I did an abroad program in Siena, Italy that focused on religion in Tuscany. Super amazing experience. I would definitely recommend for everyone. The application process was pretty easy. It wasn't too much work, and there's lots of different support options and financial aid available if it's something you're interested in but may be concerned about the cost. The Accessibility Service Office is designed to support students in all aspects of university life. They do this primarily through services such as peer note-taking, exam or assignment accommodations, as well as learning strategies and workshops. So as mentioned earlier, there's a bunch of different science programs housed in Davis, all of which are science labs, some of which are downstairs, a few are up in the research wing on the top floor or the main floor. These labs are where practicals take place, which are, like I said earlier, small classes, usually 1-hour sessions attached to a larger lecture. Practicals tend to be lower in number as they take place in the actual labs, so they have less students because they can't accommodate that many. Activities in these labs can range from experiments to specimen work to group assignments. On the lower level is earth sciences, chemistry, and physics, and on the top is biology and anthropology. The photo you see on the screen here was actually taken from the anthropology science labs, which is where I do a lot of my work as an anthro student. Actually, there's one class I took last semester that I would definitely recommend checking out if this kind of thing interests you. It was on archaeological approaches to ancient technology, and we had bi-weekly labs where we did and made things like clay tablets, stone beads, and even bone tools, which I thought was really cool. So we're going to move to our next building now, which is CCT. The Communication, Culture, and Technology Building, aka CCT, is home to one of 3 UTM-specific programs, like Meghan mentioned earlier. As well as the Forensic Science and Theater and Drama Studies program, the Communication, Culture, Information, and Technology program is one of our specialties. Within CCIT, there are different specialties as well, including Digital Enterprise Management, Professional Writing Communications, and Technology, Coding, and Society. CCT also has small tutorial classrooms, lecture halls, computer labs, and the UTM IT Services Desk. Another example of some of the larger lecture halls on campus, CC 1080 is one of the largest as it can seat up to 500 students, which again is why it's used for many first and second year courses. I actually watched a movie in this. I did a research project in May on campus, and we watched Mamma Mia in here, which was really fun. The IT Service Desk is where students first will pick up their T card, which is essentially just your form of identification when arriving to campus. Here you can also get help with IT-related problems and get troubleshooting assistance with personal devices. So it's not only for UTM or U of T related content. Oh, forgive me. Okay, so that brings me to the end of this building, and we'll be moving on to our next, the HMALC. After the former mayor of Mississauga, Hazel McKillian, the Hazel McKillian Academic Learning Center is where you can find one of 2 Starbucks on campus and the library. As part of the U of T tri-campus system, the library offers interlibrary loans free of charge to all U of T students as the 3rd largest library system in North America. In the library, there are teams of librarians, research specialists, and liaisons who work with students at the research and reference desk to provide them with general, program-specific, and course-specific support. So lots of options if you need help in that kind of area. Also, they love to help, so please take advantage of them. You can also visit the information and loans desk to borrow items like course materials, laptops, chargers, and calculators. So before we move on to the next building, I do want to point out a cool little display that's in the library, which is part of the Mystery of Mount Woodham project. So it speaks to me as an anthropology student, so I have to mention it whenever I do tours. These objects were excavated as a part of the Mystery of Mount Woodham project. This was a joint initiative between the Department of Anthropology with UTM Student Affairs and Services and UTM Facilities Management. It is ongoing. A lot of these things were excavated as a part of archaeological work on campus, as well as courses like, I think it's Ant 318, which is actually archaeological fieldwork. So there's actually research opportunities available for students in my program on campus. The reason this particular thing is so interesting as a mystery, back before UTM was UTM, during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, there were 3 residences: Lyellhurst, which now functions as the principal residence, which you can actually walk by on the UTM Nature Trail, Iverholme, which burnt down in 1913, and Mount Woodham, which remains unknown as to where it was. As far as I know, the only real evidence we have of it existing is in the background of another photograph. So it's just a really cool little display, but it's also a good example of the kind of research opportunities that are available on campus that you might not necessarily think of as a student. So our next building, which sits just left to the current one, is the Instructional Center. Most often referred to as IB, the Instructional Center is the only academic building on campus that has no specific department or program attached to it, which is cool. The reason it's called the Instructional Center instead of the Instructional Building, like the acronym may suggest, is actually really interesting. The Scarborough campus, or UTSC, had a instructional center before ours, and to avoid confusion, we actually just refer to ours as IB. However, a lot of students don't know that and will often get the two mixed up. So IB is a pretty calm building on the latter half of campus and is filled with various large-scale lecture halls, study spaces, and a computer lab, as well as a mini food court with a Subway, quesada, and a bento sushi. You're more than likely to find yourself here in your first year. Lecture halls like IB 110, IB 120, 140, and 150 are super popular for first and second year courses. And there's also lots of tutorial classrooms, so you are pretty much guaranteed to be here at some point or another. Up on the 3rd floor of IB, just outside the windows, there's actually 5 different bee houses, or beehives. They have approximately 50,000 bees per hive, which to me seemed like a lot more than they should have, but apparently that's normal. They're really brightly painted, so they're eye-catching, but they actually serve as a sustainable food source on campus. This honey, like the herbs grown in the UTM greenhouse, is used and sold in the Davis cafeteria. Just outside of IB is the UTM shuttle bus, which travels directly to St. George from the UTM campus and vice versa. It's free to all UTM students. You just need your T card to tap on, and runs pretty frequently, like a few times an hour, with times posted behind the stop on a large TV, and there's a schedule you can access online. It's often used by students who take classes at St. George. I've used it a few times. I don't take classes down there, but the stop is really close to the Royal Ontario Museum and the Art Gallery of Ontario. It's like a 15 or 20-minute walk or so. So it's pretty convenient if you want to get downtown. So we're going to move to our next building now, which is Manjaway and Nandamowanan. Commonly known as MN, the name of this building means the Gathering of Minds and is Indigenous in origin. It was designed to acknowledge the Indigenous history of the land as well as the future of the campus, which you'll also see reflected in the types of units that are in this building, which we'll talk about a little bit later. This building is equipped with active learning classrooms, which you can see on the bottom right-hand side, like those circular tables. Those are what active learning classrooms look like, as well as tutorial classrooms, lecture halls, and a large atrium. MN houses various social science and humanities departments, including English and drama, philosophy, historical studies, language studies, political science, and sociology. The atrium, similar to that of KN, is often used for guest lectures and other events. Those are a really great way to network amongst faculty and other students and are usually free to attend. On the third floor of MN is the RGASC, or the Robert Gillespie Academic Skills Center, which supports students in all academic skills, including reading, writing, math, and time management. They offer one-to-one appointments, workshops, and various other programming. They're also a really good resource when you're finishing or working on assignments, as they can give critical feedback before submission based off discussion and rubrics. Also in MN, as I mentioned before, is the Indigenous Center. It's designed to support Indigenous students, staff, and faculty while promoting equity and inclusion across campus. They run various on and off campus programs and events for Indigenous and non-Indigenous students. Some things that they and the campus were recently involved in was erecting a teepee just outside the front of the building. We also had our first All Nations powwow last year. Ending off at MN 1190, this space is a good example of tutorial classrooms, both in layout and size. Like I said, they're usually pretty small numbers and nobody shows up every week, so you probably won't have this whole space filled, but it's a good example of some of the smaller classrooms that you'll probably run into. From here, we're going to move to MN's neighboring building, Deerfield Hall. Moving on to MN neighboring building, Deerfield Hall, which is directly attached via a hallway, is home to our theater and drama studies, psychology, and computer science, mathematics, and statistics programs. It was named after the deer on campus, who are known to frequent because of the green space and surrounding forest. Interesting fact, UTM is situated on 225 acres of protected green space, which is a lot more than I thought it was. In this building is the second campus Starbucks, which is really great because it tends to be much quieter, which I definitely suggest going to, as well as the Northside Bistro, which draws students from all over campus. The bistro has things like Woodburn pizza, as well as a salad bar and things like coffee and pastry. So this is a photo I took during my first year on campus of the deer. I know Megan mentioned it earlier that you're pretty much guaranteed to see them at one point or another. This is one of my favorite parts of UTM, partially why I actually chose and have continued to stay on campus, moving further in my academic journey. I come from a small town, so I really love having the wildlife and the sort of communal vibes that come from UTM while also having the nearby convenience of the city. In Deerfield Hall is also the Math Learning Center, where students can go with questions about 100 to 200 level mathematics courses. They have TAs available to help with problem solving and learning about the course material. So we're going to move outside the building now to the Arundel Studio Theater. Located next to Deerfield, like directly next to, is the Arundel Studio Theater. This is primarily used by the Theater and Drama Studies program, who take part in approximately 2 productions a year, but that can be upwards of 5, depending on the program itself. They also have third-party groups come in and use the studio for performances as well. The ones that are done by Theater and Drama Study program, they're open to everyone to participate and attend. So we're going to move to our last building for today, the Student Center. So the Student Center is sort of the home base of the UTM Student Union, which is a representative group of students to deal with our access to program services and resources, and we have an election for them every year. They are also responsible for distributing the UPass, which this year just went digital. This allows UTM students to use My Way Transit or Mississauga Transit for free. The Student Center also acts as a sort of meeting place for a lot of different clubs and student groups, as you can book spaces within the center. They also host various events throughout the year, such as Exam Jam, as well as the Frosh, or orientation events. Inside the building is the Blind Duck Pub, a student-run restaurant, which is very popular among students, and a chat time. Before I go, I want to briefly mention one of our campus residences and talk about student housing. So this is a photo of Oscar Peterson Hall. This is the space that our residence tours are usually done in, as the residence service desk is located just inside this building. It is one of our various residences on campus and is fitted with traditional dorm-style units and a 250-seat dining hall. The building itself is actually really great. I got an opportunity, same research project that we watched the movie for. We actually stayed in Oscar Peterson Hall for the month. It tends to be 2 rooms attached by a single bathroom. But there's also common spaces, common study kitchens, laundry that's pretty accessible, and the cafeteria has pretty late hours. So overall a good building, and it's close to all the other residences as well. So there's also food options and things like that too. I highly suggest, if you're interested in residence, that you continue to explore it through the UTM Student Housing and Residence Life website. They have a bunch of additional resources, such as floor plan overviews, as well as virtual tours, both of which are great for planning. And that brings me to the end of my tour. So thank you so much for attending with me and hanging out with us for this hour. I hope you learned a lot, not just about UTM, but university life in general, and you feel a little bit more prepared. Now I will throw it back to Meghan and Connor for the Q&A section of today's event.
Thank you so much, Maddie. Always wonderful information. We always learn something new when you guys do these presentations. So very interesting. I wasn't sure what that Mount Woodham stuff was, so maybe I'll pick your brain next time we're in the office together, but I thought that was really interesting. So thank you all for that. Connor, you're back on screen. We're gonna give some time now for some live Q&A. So of course, if you guys have any questions, throw them on into the chat. We are here to assist you guys, to help you guys. So whatever you need, both me and Maddie are here, and Connor, to help answer anything that you might have. So I will pass it on to Connor, who will sort of lead the Q&A section.
Thank you very much, Meghan. Thank you, Maddie, as well. Meghan took a lot of the words out of my mouth. I've had the incredible opportunity to get to host a few of these sessions with a few different students. And the one thing that I have found working in this job is every single time I get to hear a student talk about their experiences and the programs they study, I think, man, I wish I did that. I mean, I wish I studied architectural studies downtown, or now listening to you, I really, really wish I studied anthropology. So Maddie, thank you for sharing all of that. My first question comes from me, I'll be honest, just to get the ball rolling a little bit, although I see we've gotten quite a lot of questions in the chat as well. But I always like to start with this question for Maddie. So Maddie, a lot of our audience is in a similar position that you were in just a couple of years ago. So many of them are in grade 12. Some of them maybe have already graduated. And we're starting to think about a few different universities and where we want to continue on our academic journey. So I just wanted to ask what that process was like for you, kind of what things were you looking for out of a university, or maybe what drew you towards UTM or your program in particular? And you can answer that however you like.
Yeah, so there's a few different things that kind of like influenced my decision. So program-wise, and this is going to be a little stereotypical, I loved bones growing up. So that's how I got introduced to like anthropology as a discipline. And it wasn't until my first year when I took a course that actually focused on pseudoscience and pseudo-archaeology that I started to explore the discipline more. And that's what led me into the archaeology side of anthropology and just anthro in general. In terms of picking my universities, I didn't really have a plan while I was in high school. I knew that I wanted to like keep up my grades and go to like a higher not necessarily higher status, but like some of the top schools, just because that's always what I had been working for. In all honesty, I was not going to at first apply for U of T. I was scared. My My mom made me. She told me to do it. So she was like, you've got the grades. You might as well. It's not going to hurt anyone that you don't. And I was lucky that I applied and I got into the program that I wanted. But in terms of like picking the schools that I wanted something that was not too far away from home, that was, still in the same province. So another school that I applied to was McMaster. I wanted something that was kind of close, but still gave me a little bit of distance from home, like a little bit of independence. But also something that the good thing for me is because my program is kind of more so universal, because it's the base is humanities. There was a little bit more of, how do I word this? A little bit more option available to me, because like even our 3 campuses have it. There's a bunch of other programs that have anthropology. Yes, what they offer can be different in between, but the program is still there. Whereas a lot of students, I know what they deal with is trying to figure out where is this offered. So I guess like my biggest thing was sort of just narrowing it down as to what options were available to me, and just sort of taking a shot in the dark, I guess. Just go for it. You might as well.
No, it's funny that you say that your mom pushed you to apply to the University of Toronto. I don't know if Megan can say the same thing. Even you, Maddie, I know you speak with a lot of prospective students that I've heard that a million times, that students are like, oh, I don't know if I am ready for the University of Toronto, or if I don't know if my grades are strong enough. I always encourage students, to really to challenge yourself and to our job as the admissions office is to decide who's the best candidate for our programs. So I always tell students, let us decide. Don't decide for yourself, because you might surprise yourself. And Maddie, I'm certainly glad that you decided to challenge yourself like that, and I'm glad that we have you on the team.
Well, me too. Thank you.
No, because we're so lucky. I'm getting sentimental. That's okay. It's late. So I've got another question, which I think could be a tag team for the two of you. I don't know. We did get a question from a student, HH, who asked if UTM follows a college system like the St. George campus. So I wanted to pose this as a two-parter. First of all, if either one of you is comfortable explaining what the college system is in the first place, for those who don't know what it is, and maybe talk about also the more straightforward part of answering that question of whether we have something like that at Mississauga. So whichever of you wants to start. Yeah, Megan, why don't you?
I can. Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, just some context here. So the University of Toronto, Mississauga, we are home to about 15,000 undergraduate students. The St. George campus, which is the downtown Toronto campus, is home to about 35,000 students, undergraduate students. So more than double the students that we have here at Mississauga. So the college system on the St. George campus has really been created to create those smaller communities within the Faculty of Arts and Science. So it's a way to have those smaller communities within the really large undergraduate student population. The college systems, they serve as residences, but then they also will give you access to many of the different services. So that includes academic advising, library services, student clubs and associations, that kind of stuff. So when it comes to UTM, we do not follow that college system. We provide all of our students, the entire undergraduate student population, those same services that you would find at each of the college services. And we are able to provide those services for, that entire population rather than having those smaller communities.
I could not have said it better myself. That was a perfect answer. I'm going to bring it back to Maddie for a second and just come back to a little bit about the conversation that we were just having. Now, this, as I know Maddie can recall, I can recall, this can be a kind of an intimidating, scary time of year. I know that making that jump from high school into university for a lot of us, or just the jump into higher education in general, can be a little bit intimidating. We don't really know what to expect, and maybe we're a little bit worried about what it's going to be like once we get here. So Maddie, I just wanted to ask a little bit about what your transition into university was like, and also whether if you used any of our different student supports to kind of help you settle into life as a university student, kind of what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, so I will preface this by saying I started during COVID, so my transition experience was a little bit different than I'm finding a lot of first and even second year students now were having when they first came in. I found, for me, because I came in when everything was online, luckily I had experience doing online learning, so previous to COVID. So for me, it was a fairly easy transition that way, like getting used to functioning online, whereas I know some people did struggle with that. The good thing is now that we're back in person, that there's a little bit more opportunity for things like getting to know your peers as a first year, accessing those supports, just feeling comfortable on campus, which we didn't really get coming in during COVID. I will say the biggest part of like learning the transition is that, and I know it's so cliche, like every high school teacher says it, like it's not the same. And it's not like, oh, the professors are stricter. Like that's some are, like most of mine aren't, but it's more in the, because everything is so independent, there's a stronger sense of it's your job to do it. And that can be really scary for students. I know it was frightening for me as well. So when it comes to like deadlines, reminders, keeping up with your work or making sure that you're going to class, those things are really important that you have to sort of self-manage. And even things like time management and organization. I know for my high school, sometimes we'd get time to work on assignments in class, or we would have like reminders closer to the deadline. And that very rarely happens here. A lot of it is just under the assumption that you're in university now, these things are up to you. Also, too, outside of academics, like coming in, not in first year, but in second year, when I first started living on my own, then it was like, not only do I have to handle my academics, now I'm paying rent, I'm buying groceries, and I didn't have a car. So I just had to like walk my groceries home. So there's lots of things that you have to learn to be independent by when coming in. Luckily, I think there's lots of, like Connor said, lots of supports. And actually, I'll tie this back to what Meghan was saying with the college system, where we don't have a college system, but the supports that we have are the same and can still function very similarly. So I was actually part of the UTM launch program in my first year. It was online, but everyone was really great. Not necessarily that I still keep in touch with people, but I still follow them. Like I've seen them on campus. And I think in person, it's even better when you get to know their faces and they start to know who you are. So you sort of create a small community that way. Same thing too.
Sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to ask if you could expand on what launch is.
Oh, yeah. So UTM launch, I can't remember if it doesn't count as a credit, I don't think. But you can get a notation on your CCR for it. So what it is, it's like, I think it was 2 hours every week. It's pretty similar to a lecture. And essentially you just gather in this small launch group with a launch leader who at my time, his name was Randy and he was a fifth year. And so what they do is they kind of like facilitate, most of it was like introductions to what does the campus look like? Here are the supports that you can use. They kind of did something similar to what these kind of like interactions do, where it's like, here's what you need to know about the campus so we can prepare you for when you get here. I can't speak to how it is in person, but I assume it fulfills the same function, whereas it's sort of an introduction to the different kinds of services and things on campus that you might be a little bit afraid to sort of deal with yourself. I actually saw a question from Sonia that I think is related to what I'm talking about. So if you don't mind.
Please.
Okay. So Sonia was saying, I hear that there is much more academic pressure in university. How would you manage between academic pursuits, extracurricular pursuits, and support services? That's a great question. Super great. So I don't think it's that there's more academic pressure. I think it's more about the pressure you put on yourself. I know in high school, I was very much like, I put a lot of pressure on myself. So when I got to university, that just stuck. So it actually took a bit of me to sort of lessen that pressure personally and understand that university is really important, but you also have to think of yourself when it comes to dealing with like your mental health, your emotional support, as well as just your academic journey. Like, not everything's going to be clear cut. Not every class is going to be, you're going to be super great in. Not every class is going to be super hard. It really depends. Not on even the course. It could just depend on the professor. Personally, because like I said, I also work as a student ambassador. I'm also on the Historical Studies Society. I'm a secretary. So I've sort of, at least for the past 2 years, been trying to balance school, work, extracurriculars. A lot of it comes down to sort of your scheduling. Like, you kind of need to know what you can schedule around. So for support services, I guess it's not necessarily a support, but it kind of functions like it. It's called the work study program, which is what I do. It's designed to, it's limited hours, like 15 hours or so a week. And it's designed to work around your schedule. So that's, for example, one way that the school offers support to you, which would be financially, but there's also under the assumption that it will work around your academic schedule. So there isn't too much stress on planning like you would with an off-campus part-time job. The good thing is extracurriculars and things like that, it sort of depends how interested you are. You don't have to do them. It's not like high school where you have to get your volunteer hours in. If you don't want to do them, you don't have to. So don't feel pressure on yourself to live up to like that idea that you have to be involved in every capacity. You don't. You'll meet people, you'll get to know things, you'll get involved in things just as a regular student, like even if you don't get involved. So I think in terms of managing that, you just have to be on top of that, like know your limits and know that you don't have to push past them. Like, there's no expectation that you do, I guess is what I would say. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, Maddie, sorry, Meghan, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I was just bravo. Yes, perfect. You nailed
bravo
it.
For sure. I mean, Maddie, you touched upon a lot of the stuff that I normally touch upon too. I really like how you kind of wrapped it up with, take it slow, be kind to yourself, and you don't need to do everything at once in your very first year. I appreciate how honest you were, Maddie, about some of the challenges with starting in first year. And it's also an opportunity that I always like to take to say, it's true that the expectations are different when we come to university, and that there is a lot more independence, and some students adapt to that quite well. Some students need a little bit of extra help. And I know you highlighted some of the different student supports. Launch is a fantastic transition program. We've also got a lot of fantastic support programming, like our Robert Gillespie Academic Skills Center, just to help students come away with a stronger understanding of what are the actual expectations of me as a university student, and also how do I actually do it. Our Academic Skills Center, for example, has workshops on how to manage your time as a university student, or how to study for your first university exams, or how to effectively take notes when you're in a big lecture hall. A lot of the little things that can be challenging for some students, but don't necessarily need to be. They just, sometimes we need a little bit of extra guidance to help us make that transition. And the last thing I want to say, and I'll stop talking because it really is for you folks to talk, even though it can be a bit of a challenge, I always like to tell students, that your first year professors know that they're teaching first year students who have never done this before. So the expectations can be a little bit different, but ultimately you're surrounded by thousands of other students who are in the exact same boat as you, who are learning the same skills as you, facing the same challenges, and ultimately generally do come out above it. It's our job as an office to select students that we believe are best equipped for success. And when we invite you to the University of Toronto, we're taking your hand and saying, we think that you have what it takes to succeed here, and we want to see you do the best that you can do. Now, I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to hand it back over. We're going to get a little bit into the admission side of things a little bit, so I'm going to hand it over to Meghan. We've got two sort of related admissions questions, both from Michael. So I'm going to start with this one about Michael's asking whether their admission average is based on ENG for you and their next 5 best grade 12 courses. I guess the way that I want to ask that question is Meghan, when a student applies to the University of Toronto, Mississauga, what are we actually looking at, and how are we assessing them to determine whether they can be admitted to the university?
Yeah, thank you, Connor. So for every program that we offer at UTM, we are going to be looking at your ENG for you. And then depending on the program that you're applying for, there may be some other prerequisites like advanced functions or biology, whatever that might be. So what we're going to be looking for is that English for you. And then we're going to be looking at your next 5 grade 12 courses that include those prerequisites. So we're going to take example, if you require biology and chemistry for a life science program, we're going to take your English for you, we're going to take your biology, we're going to take chemistry, and then we're going to take 3 more of your top highest grade 12 grades, and that is going to form your admission average.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And on a related note, we've got a question about entrance awards. Now, I know we're running a little bit low on time. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes left, but I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about just the basics of how our automatic entrance scholarships work, and if you've got any information on the evaluation or assessment process, what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So the UTM does offer automatic entrance scholarships, and these are offered to all applicants, so all domestic and international students. And these automatic entrance scholarships are going to be assessed when we are issuing your offer letter. So there are they're based on your grade average. So we are looking, these automatic entrance scholarships are sort of based on 90% and above. And so depending on your grade average would depend on, or would indicate which entrance scholarship you're receiving. But yes, it is based at the time of offer. So what that means is if we are offering you an offer of admissions and we only have your midterm grades, that entrance scholarship is going to be based on your average at that time with those midterm grades. So that being said, should those grades go a little bit below, you will not lose that entrance scholarship. And unfortunately, it's the same thing as if they go up a little bit more, then we wouldn't change that entrance scholarship, but they are based on your grades at the time of admission or offer, I should say.
Perfect answer. It is a bit of a double-edged sword, that one, eh? But I always like to remind students, we have over 5,000 scholarships.
So many different
just entrance awards alone.
Yeah.
Automatic entrance awards are just one part of that massive award money pie. Now I've got 1 or 2 quick ones for you. I know we're coming close to the time, and then I'm going to give a wrap-up question to Maddie. But before I do, Meghan, I've got 1 or 2 more admissions-related ones I want to pose to you. The first is, do we look at your program ranking choice on the OUAC when we are assessing whether a student is admissible?
Here at UTM, I can confirm that we do not. So we will be assessing your application regardless of what choice you indicate.
Awesome. Perfect. Nice and easy. And then my final question for either one of you before I give a kind of a wrap-up question to Maddie is about orientation week. I guess the question really is orientation faculty specific, or is it common to all students? And either one of you, if you want to talk about it.
I mean, I can just quickly say that, so we do have our general orientation, but then there are academic department orientations as well. Maddie, if you want to elaborate on what orientation might look like in the eyes of the student, but yes, there are so many supports and orientation events that will be there to support you throughout, that first week when you come.
Yeah, there's a few different options, like Frosh Week or like Freshman Orientation Week, which is done by the UTMSU. Super big thing. I think they went on like a boat this year. Like they do some pretty crazy stuff, and they have like team games, and you're often paired up with an older student. I know a friend of mine did it last year. She was a part of the Frosh events. So they did like team games and team building. So there's orientation that's more designed around getting to know the campus and other students. In terms of things that are faculty or program related, there isn't as much the same concept, but it's sort of separated into two different things. So first one I'll say, during the first 2 weeks of school, there's the clubs fair. So this is a massive tabling event with almost all the clubs, student society, student groups, support services. You can go and talk to, usually it'll be like their academic society as well as volunteering students. I don't know if they have faculty come, but it's a good experience to learn about the kind of groups that are available on campus that you can get in touch with, as well as the different kinds of clubs. And then clubs specifically, not clubs, academic society specifically is where you would want to go for faculty or department orientation-based things. I can speak from experience, the Historical Studies Society, or the HSS. This year we did a professor meet and greet. So it was students that weren't even not necessarily in the society could come meet our our team, as well as different faculty from the department. So if you're interested in getting to know one specific faculty or one specific department, going to those academic societies themselves would probably be the best way to get oriented within them.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing so much detail about that. I know we're short on time, so I've just thrown up our contact information at the bottom for anybody who needs to leave. If you two have another minute, Maddie, I've got one last question for you. It's one that I always like to ask current students when I'm hosting these types of events, which is, I guess, just now that you have gone through a couple of years of university and you've experienced a lot of it, is there anything that you maybe wish that you knew when you were either going into university or getting started in your first year, or maybe something that you wish that you had come across earlier than you already have?
I think one of my biggest things is that I wish I had gotten involved a little bit earlier, and not necessarily in the whole, work, extracurriculars, academics, all this stuff. I think just sort of understanding the kind of services and things that we had before would have been really helpful for me. So last year I volunteered with the CSE. That's when I got involved in doing the abroad. That's when I started working for the office. But a lot of that, I felt really supported me in my academics because it gave me things other to do than just schoolwork. And it could be a little bit challenging to balance at first, but I think it was just personal growth. It was just something I needed to learn. So if I was to suggest anything to anyone else, is even if you don't get involved, know what's available to you. Go to the clubs fair, see what kind of clubs and student societies are there for you. Because even if you're not a part of them or an active member, go to the events, know what's going on. You can meet people, know names, that kind of thing. Also, too, talk to your professors. They're scary, I know, but they're not that bad. I promise you. First year, I was very much like that. I didn't really get in touch with them. Latter half of second year, I started kind of trying to integrate myself more, and it can lead to a lot of great things, logistically, reference letters and academic supports, but also just getting to learn the kinds of research that are out there and getting to meet more of the faculty. So yeah, in total, just know what's out there for you and know that it's not as scary to handle as you may think it is.
That's a perfect answer. You took my top two favorite things to say. So Maddie, thank you so much. Both of you, thank you very much. That is all the time we have for now. So I'm going to hand it over to Meghan to wrap it up, and then we'll say goodbye.
Awesome. Thank you both. So any questions that maybe we didn't get a chance to get to, or that even come up in the future, on screen right now, you can see our contact information and all of our lovely faces. But we have a lot of different types of events that are going to be coming up in the next few months or so. So I would encourage all of you guys to visit our website and events page to see what's coming up. We do have another session like this in February, as well as our weekly Ask a Recruiter sessions, which have just started, where you could join me or one of my colleagues in a small group meeting to ask any questions that you might have as well. So throughout this whole application process, we are here to assist you. Again, I'd like to thank Maddie for giving us a wonderful glimpse into the day of a life of a student, as well as Connor and Oriana for their assistance with the chat, and obviously for making sure that this whole event ran as great as it did. Of course, thank you all once again for joining us today and for letting us highlight why we love the University of Toronto and the Mississauga campus so much. And like I said, again, if you guys have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. We love speaking with our applicants, and we're always happy to help you. So thanks again. Have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful day. And we wish you all the best of luck. Bye, everyone.